So let's continue. So remember when I explained transform and game objects? So you have game object, and then game objects have components. Remember that? And transforms, and transform is technically a component. Now, there's other things like here, like the components. So you have things like mesh render, render. You have things like audio source. You have things like rigid body, etc. So, and I'm recording all this, by the way, so if you don't have to take notes, you don't have to. So basically, each of these components can be accessible in code. So you need to do that. So let's say if you have an audio source on an object, that means that the audio is coming from this game object. So now this game object plays sounds in 3D space, depending on where the transform is, for example, if that's how you have it set. But let's say, that audio source, you only want that to play when something happens. Like, for example, we have like a goalie, like we have a character here, and we have a ball, and then that ball goes into the goal, and then it should, it should make a sound, something like that. So the way that you do that is you have to reference this component somehow in your script. Now, the way that looks in C# is you basically, each component, when it's written like this, like capital, like whatever the name of the component is, that's what's called a class. So when you want to access a certain type of class, like audio source, you literally type, like remember how we had float,
Yeah.
and then float, speed is equal to this, whatever. So this prefix here, so you have int, bool, string, etc. So these prefixes in C# and in most C languages, it usually is like the type. So it's a type of this, and then the name of the type. So that's like your name, and you can make that up to whatever you want, and then equals to the value, so whatever the value of that is. And the value always has to be the same type as the type, otherwise you're going to get some sort of error. So now, an interesting thing in how Unity is laid out and all this component-based stuff is that something like the audio source or the rigid body is also a type. It's a much more complex type, but it's basically it's a type of what's called a construct. Now you don't have to really know what these terms mean, but all you have to know for now is that when you want to get the audio source in code, what you would do is you say the type, so it's a prefix, and it's called audio source, and then the name of it, my audio or something like that, and then it's equal to, and then there's a special function. This is something called get component. So you do get component, and then in there it's written in a very specific way. It's using like one of these, but I'll show you all this on the computer. And then in here you write the same thing, audio source. So what this basically does, and it's like that. So what this basically does is it takes get component, when you write it just like this, it basically gets the component of whatever the script is attached to. So when you do get component, you tell it what component you want the audio source. So now you created an audio source, my audio is equal to that component. So now what you can do is when something happens, if, something, then my audio, and then here you'll see a lot of things, dot play. That's it.
Okay.
So, but it needs to know what to play. That's the whole kind of nexus of how scripting really works, is You have to, objects interact with each other, but not only objects, but multiple components, because each object can have multiple components and stuff. So sometimes, you'll have a collision happen, and then on that collision event, you want to find the audio that you want to play. Now, a lot of people that get started in Unity, this is where they get stuck a lot, and they get this, they get these null reference exceptions and stuff. That usually just means that the program doesn't know what you're talking about. That's usually what that means. It's like the program knows that you want this or you want that, but it just doesn't know which thing you want. And we'll cover that right now, kind of like when we start a little bit of this scripting. So let's just dive into it. So there's no homework to review today. That's all right. So let's just create a new project if you haven't already. You can too. I don't really have a great naming convention yet. Okay. So if we just start like this, so just a new project, and I feel like it'll be simpler for us to do some of this stuff out of what the stuff that we were already doing back there. We could open the other project too, but we'll see if we end up needing to. But let's do something very simple, right? So let's see what should be the first thing. So let's do some more of these physics things first before we dive into these components stuff. So create a plane. So just click game object, 3D object, plane. Can you see good, or do you think I should plug in the TV right here behind us? Okay, good. So yeah, just make a plane. You know what? I think it would be better to open the other project because we have a lot of our materials in there too, and I don't want to spend too much time Googling stuff. So just open the other one. We'll start a new project when we do the shooter. You don't have to save it. But yeah, so instead of starting a new project, we're just gonna start a new scene in this project. Alright, cool. Now we'll make a plane. And then just pull one of these materials that you already kind of had, the grass material or whatever you had. You should have a materials folder, or the sand. Yep, that's good. So now I want to just kind of show you something cool before we get into delving into scripting a little bit more. So I want you to take the character that you had, right, and just pull them into your scene. The dancing character that we had before. Mine had a sword. I'm going to get rid of this sword. We don't need it. So it should be, I think we put it in like a characters folder. Or, yeah, that should work. So just check if it has an animation or not. Yeah, so you're not going to need it. But just if it has it, yeah. So if you just press play, they should be doing their dancing routine and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right. So now here's something, right? So he is animated and he's doing this thing, but notice he's kind of in the sky for me here a little bit, and that's because his collider, you can see it's kind of like at his feet here. And he also seems to be walking out of his own collider as well, which is something that we actually don't want. So if you just zoom into yours, and if it doesn't have a collider, this is what you do, right? So first, you add a component, yeah, and you add a, no, so let's do a box collider for this one. And then you'll see it probably will start around the feet, and you want to change like the center and the size. You want to kind of tweak it, maybe make center like, Y1 to move it up Yeah, so just make that 1. Yeah, and then make like the size in y maybe like 1.5 or something like that. Or like 1.7. And make the size in x maybe a little thin. Yeah, so don't change the center. The center should be 0 there, only y should be 1. You get it? You don't want to change the center, yeah. So the size, make it maybe 0.5 in x and like 1.7 in y to make it like elongated, and then like 0.5 is the same on the other side. And then just the important thing is just to make sure that it reaches over the feet. You see mine still kind of isn't, so I'm going to keep increasing the size until I get to, right where the feet should be. So for me the perfect setting seems to be just 2, a size of 2, and a center of 1 in the y. So yeah, so if you ever need to see it closer, you could also use Q and E to go up and down too, if you hold. Yeah, so E to go back up. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's also another shortcut. And then just make sure you select the move tool, and I think you have the grabber. So yeah, the grab tool, I think if you press just Q, it goes to the grab tool. Okay. So then the other thing that, not just the box collider, but we also need a rigid body.
Yeah.
So that we can actually, so you can actually be planted on there. Alright, cool. So now I want you to just create, maybe just make this plane a little bit bigger, like 5 by 5 like we had it before. And when you do that, just save the scene. Test scene. Oh, we already have one. Just test 2. Nope, then we already have that too. Test 3. Okay. So now, kind of right next to the character, I want you to make like a cube would work, just a regular cube. And on the cube, I want you to add a rigid body too. So there's a quick way of doing component as well. You can click right here where it says add component, and you can just search the thing you want. You just start typing rigid body, and it is right there. So that's a quick way of doing it. And now,
No collider.
so it already has one, if you'll notice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you press play right now, the cube will probably fall, and the character will do his dance routine. Now, if you try to pull this cube up, you'll notice that the moment you kind of let go, or if you try to even hold it up in the air, it'll just kind of fall down, right? Now, say we want to have this cube controllable by us, but we still want it to affect the environment. So the way that we do that is, you could remove gravity, but if you just remove gravity, what happens is if you, let's say we try that, right? So just remove gravity, and then if you press play with the gravity removed, and you take this cube and maybe like kind of put it right towards like his head, like we want to knock him over. Oh yeah, we forgot one crucial thing, but see, and if I push it over, this cube also bounces off. So you maybe want to tweak your, you see that? So the cube is being affected, and you kind of, So the gravity, even though there's no gravity, it still is, they're pushing off each other, which isn't the effect that we want to go for. But see, I still knock this guy over.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you'll notice is if you click your character, you might see that the collider is actually really far from the character. So maybe just try zooming in a little bit more to your scene there. So right click, because you're never work in your scene so far away like that, because you don't really know what you're. Yeah, so if you just click your character, and you just to look at the object, the character object. Yeah, that's good. You see how he's out of his collider? He starts there, but it's because the animation, same thing with mine. So the animation is actually happening separate from the collider. Now, this is a quick little workflow thing, but say you have So just unpress play. So
Can you group them together?
So no, what we actually should be doing is this box collider should actually be on the hips. That's the trick, right? But here's the thing, right? So let's say you don't want to like delete it from here and then you have to add it again and put all the settings. There's a quicker way of doing that. So you can just right click the box collider component and copy component like that. And I'll click the hips, and in here I think because since there's no components, just add like a rigid body. And then right click on rigid body because to be able to paste, there's something needs to be there already. You could have pasted on the transform too.
Okay.
Yeah, so just right click and paste component as new. You'll notice that the offset is a little bit up. That's because it's on the hip. So maybe the center Y, make it 0. Something like that. So don't move them in there. You should undo that. So just undo, keep undoing until you get to where you were. Keep undoing.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to move the object in there so much. You always kind of want to work with the top level. So once you have those things copied, go back to the top level of the character and just remove the rigid body and the box collider. Remove component, yeah. Let me just see if that works. Yeah, so now he's moving with the collider on him. Yep. Now you'll notice that the cube that you push into him gets affected, but he doesn't get affected. The reason is because he actually, since he has an animator, the animator supersedes all of the physics. So if there's an animator on top and it's animating things, those physics objects are no longer affected by physics like that. Now, if you click the top level of your character and uncheck the animator, just uncheck it, and then he fell over, right?
Yeah.
So he fell over because he was already in like a routine kind of.
Yeah.
And once you disable, so look at my character, right? So see how if I kind of knock him a little bit. So if I knock him a little bit, see that?
Yeah.
And there he goes. So now let's fix this cube running away from us whenever we push it in. So I think I explained this in one of the previous classes, but I'll just kind of go over it quick again. So there's this little check mark here. When you click your cube in the rigid body, you see right under use gravity is kinematic. So if you select that, what that basically does is it makes the object controlled by you, the user. The script or whatever, it's like a manual control object. So now if you press play, you see that you can actually move this object and it's not like bouncing off itself, kind of like how it did before. So you still have the animator because you unchecked the animator.
Oh, yeah.
So just zoom in. It doesn't hurt to be a little more zoomed in. Just zoom in with the scroll wheel. Yeah, it's always better. Yeah, so you'll notice now the cube doesn't run away from you because it's kinematic. So for things like, say like the player object or like anything that you kind of move in a game world or in a virtual world, and it still needs to have those physics properties like being able to push objects and etc., you want to make that object kinematic. So now what we're going to do, right, is we're going to do something cool. So we're actually going to click these hips, and we're gonna remove these. Actually, just disable the box collider, and just remove the rigid body, just so you can save the box collider there. Yeah. So now what I want to do is I want to show you how to make a ragdoll real quick. So this is a built-in Unity feature, and it's pretty cool. So all I need you to do is take the character that you currently have and go and make them into a prefab. So just, if, just drag him. So not like that. So you take the character and you just drag into your assets. Yeah, just like that. That's good. So we save them like that. Now what I want you to do is select the character in the scene. So we saved it. Think of this as a backup. So we're going to make a clone of this character. The clone is going to be like a physics version of the character. And what we're going to do is when the cube hits the clone, the regular version, he's going to turn into a physics version of himself. And I'll show you how that works. So yeah, so you'll see, right? So now just when you have him selected here, just go to game object, 3D object, and then ragdoll, as you want to create a ragdoll. Now you'll see this little menu, and there's going to be a bunch of little settings there. So open up the character right there in the scene view to reach like his bones, and you open the hips. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the hips and put it in the pelvis. So this is kind of like its own naming convention as left hips, left knee, left foot, or whatever. This really depends on your 3D model. Every 3D artist names their bones differently. Somewhere it's pelvis, somewhere it's hips, somewhere it's root, but it's still, you can kind of imply that it means pelvis. And you kind of go down the line. So what you do is you put the hips in the pelvis, and then when you open the hips, you see left up leg, right up leg.
Yeah.
So left up leg is left hips, I think. And then if you open left up leg, you'll see left leg, that's left knee, I think. And one quick way to always check that, if you're not sure, is you can actually just select like the left up leg and just try to rotate it in the scene. It looks like the knee to me. So just use the rotate tool and just kind of, that's the knee, I would say. You get what I mean? And just undo that. But yeah, so then let's continue. So now open the left leg, and in there should be left foot, and then that goes in left foot. So you can see it fit, right? And let's do the same thing for the right leg. So right up leg is right hip, right leg is right knee, and right foot. Next is what it wants left arm. So you have to open the spine, and then go to spine 1, spine 2, and then in there you should see left shoulder. So open that. That's actually the clavicle. So we don't actually want that. We want the left arm. So just put the left arm. Then in there, left forearm is left elbow. Then go to the right shoulder. Open the right shoulder. Right arm. And then open that. Right forearm. And then it should have a middle spine and a head. So middle spine is like, I think, spine 2, I think. And there's one way to check is always just to rotate your character. So just put spine 2 in middle spine. And then when you open the spine, go to neck. And in there should be head. And just put that there. Boom. And now click create.
What total mass and strength and noise?
Yeah, don't worry about it. So now if you click your character, you'll see that he has just not like that. Click him in the scene, the top level, always. No, in the scene, in the hierarchy. Sorry. Alright. Yeah. So you see how when you click him now, he has these kind of like arrows, and he's got all these little colliders on every body part.
Yeah.
So now if you just press play, and yours, since he has an animator, he's going to try to animate through the physics, but just disable the animator, and you should see him just collapse. Whereas mine, since he doesn't have the animator, he just collapses right off the bat. So you just see that.
Nice.
Now, just unpress play, and just, there's 2 ways of doing this really. But let's do it like the simpler way. So if you just unpress, yeah, it's a physics object, so it'll do that. It's not a very proper way to do it. So if you click just the character, just disable the animation on start. Just no animator. All right. And then what I want you to do is remember that prefab that we saved. So this one, I want you to just rename the character up here. No, not there. Up here in the hierarchy. Rename him to /ragdoll, like whatever the name of the character, and then plus add ragdoll. Yep. And then take that character and save them as a prefab. So now you have a ragdoll version and a non-ragdoll version, right?
How do you move the, like...
You can. It's kind of like how your scene is arranged. I don't know why yours is so unarranged. I think it's... You have some weird like setting here. Not sure why.
There's no cleanup.
I mean, this should... I don't know why it's so unorganized. I think it's in your Mac, maybe. You gotta like. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, so now I want you to take the non-ragdoll version of the character and pull it pretty much right in the other character. Yeah. Then, just to make sure, since it's maybe starts in a weird place, just click that inside version of the old guy, yeah, and then just zero out his location and his rotation. Yours is already good. Mine wasn't. So see, mine kind of started all the way over there, and then look, when I zeroed it out, it put it exactly matched with this character. And then I'm gonna pull it out of the character. So that's just a quick way of making sure that two objects are literally right on top of each other.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Continue. You can break the prefab instance, and then you can resave the prefab instance.
What do you mean resave it?
Did you save it with? No. Let me see. You pulled it out the wrong thing. So this is the ragdoll.
Mm-hmm.
This guy.
Oh yeah.
He's over there. See that?
Oh.
So yeah, what you were pulling is the skin of the character, basically. Okay, good. Now you can pull that up. So
Was this
the
zero?
exo red. No, that's fine. No, don't do that because you moved it. You moved your original character. You don't do that. Because go back one more time. More. Okay, now turn around the camera. Since your character's right there, don't move him somewhere where you don't know where he is. Okay, just pull this guy that's inside him, which you already zeroed. Pull him out of it now.
So when you put this zero, it's like the position
Inside
relative to
that,
this.
relative, exactly.
Okay.
That's why yeah. But the top level is like the zero of the world, basically. You get it?
Okay.
Now they're both the same, right? So now what I want you to do is I want you to actually disable the ragdoll one. Just turn him off right there. Just right there, yeah. So now you only have one of them, but they're basically right on top of each other.
Yeah.
So now the idea is that we actually want to do a little script that basically when this cube hits this character, he will just kind of like go limp. The little bit of a trick with how we're doing it here is since we have this very elaborate dance animation that goes off center, it might look a little weird if he's like somewhere off center, because then his ragdoll is going to come right back to the center. So I'm actually going to, you know what, I mean, we should probably find another animation that's just much simpler, and there's a quick way of doing that. So just right click in your project view so we can import the default character package. So import package and then characters. And in there they have a character that has some basic animations. The great thing about Unity and the way that the new Unity works is animations are kind of universal. They don't actually, yeah, I made a backup, go ahead. They're not tied to the model that they came with. You can put an animation from a different kind of model on any model pretty much, as long as it's still a humanoid. And it does all that automatically. This was stuff that did not exist before. Got that?
Yeah.
So now open his character controller. The animator, the character controller of the. One quick way to do it is just click your character, and then in there it should the one that's active, yeah. Because the ragdoll isn't going to have an animation.
Okay.
So just instead of robot hip hop dance, just click it or whatever you have there. Yeah, just click the capoeira, and then just switch the motion. And in there now you should see a lot of motions. So just click the little circle right next to it, right there, to open it, right here. Yeah, and then just look for idle, something humanoid idle. Just idle. Type idle, I-D-L-E. Yes, like humanoid idle.
This one?
Yeah. Let's just see if it works. Just make sure you enable the animator again.
So that's it?
Yeah.
Here it goes.
So just enable. It's already enabled.
Still
And
dance.
it's not. Yeah, dance is the name of the. Let me see here. Yeah, seems to not want. Let me see something. Yeah. So some animations don't work well. Yeah, never mind. I thought that would work with this humanoid idol. Yeah, in any case, just go back to the animation controller and just put it back to the dance. It seems the Mixamo rigs are. Did you download any other animations? That time?
No.
That's alright.
Just put it back to the
Yeah, so double click. Yeah, did you in animator? Yeah, good. Alright, just disable the animation for now. So we're gonna go into just a tiny script. So what we basically want to happen at runtime is this, right? So look, I click here. I want this guy to be disabled, and then this guy to become enabled. That's what I want. So we need to do that somehow in script, right? So during runtime, this guy gets hit, this object gets deactivated, and this object gets activated. That's all we want to do. Very simple, right? And we want to do that on collision. So here's how we do that, right? So the object, the character that's still on, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add component, and we can do the box collider like we did before.
We have one.
We can paste it. We can do that too, from the hips, if you want to do that. Copy the component from the hips, paste it, and then just offset this Y to 1, whatever. Right click, paste component as new, and then make the Y 1. Yeah, just 1. No, not 11. Yeah. All right. So now.
Do I enable it?
Yeah, enable it. So since it's a collider, so there's 2 ways to do this. Collider will work right now, but if I just push him in like this, it'll just go through it, nothing happens, right? We need a little script that's going to detect on collision, basically. So what we're going to do in assets here, we're actually going to right click, create C# script, and we're going to call that script make ragdoll or something like that. Make ragdoll. No spaces. And once you have it, yeah. So do not rename it once you have it, yeah. Then open it. And now I'm going to introduce you to just a simple concept, and that is away from these voids. So we're not going to do void start or void update here. It's a special one, and it's actually called void. So start typing like that down there, void on collision, and it's like this. So it's like capital O. So the O is capital in the beginning.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's on collision, enter. So it's capital E. Yeah, like that. Each word starts with a capital. And then open parentheses. And then you're going to write collision with a capital C. So it's a type of collision. And then it's just collision. Just a full, yeah. Space, and then you're gonna write other object. This is the name of the type. It doesn't have to be other object. It could be my object. It could be, the guy that hit me, But basically, it's other object, and you can do it with the capital O. That's fine. So close that, and then open a curly bracket, and then make a few lines, and then close a curly bracket. So what this does basically, so there's two new concepts here. There's a concept of a new type of function,
Yeah.
and then there's these parameters. As before, we were only doing these empty parentheses,
Yeah.
but now we have this. So what this basically means is it's something called a parameter. So what a parameter is anything that gets passed in that parentheses gets used in here. So when on collision happens, on collision enter. Oops. So you have, we have our box collider for our character. Our character is like here, happy guy. So we have our cube that's coming in, and once that hits, on collision enter happens. And then in here, that parameter that we defined, other object, other. So other becomes this. This is other. So we know, so on collision enter happens on the character. This is where we're checking.
Yeah.
So then once that happens,
That's
other is this. So it's basically now we know what hit us.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to put that parameter there, because there's always the hit and the person that hit you. So it's like the person getting hit and the person doing the hitting, basically. And that completes the circle. So you're checking here, and that's the other thing. So back to our script right here. So we want to just do two simple lines here. But before we do that, just up here, we have to define a public game object. So you type public game object, like with capital G. No, the space, you put space after public. So public is just the access level. Yeah, so public game object, and then my ragdoll. Just like that. And then semicolon. Yeah. So if we go back to our project, just save your script and go back to the project. And now if you just click, where we put the box collider on the character, same place there, I want to put the script we just made, make ragdoll. Yeah. You can also drag it in there. You can drag it a lot of ways like that. So it expects us to give him the ragdoll.
Yeah.
Now, there's two things you can really pull in here. You can pull things, remember how we were pulling from the project in there?
Yeah.
That's if you're creating an object that's not already in the scene. If you want to work with an object that's currently in the scene, you just drag it from the scene.
Okay.
So you drag the disabled object, ragdoll, into the my ragdoll slot of the character. So you can't just drag it onto itself like that. You have to have it selected there, as long as this is open, and then pull it there. Yep. So now we made the connection. So it knows which object we're talking about is the ragdoll, is the disabled object,
Yes.
right? So now if we go back to our script, now we can work with that, right?
Okay, yeah.
So what we basically do here, so on collision enter, so the collision already happened. All we're gonna do is we're gonna do my ragdoll, since it's a game object, my ragdoll dot
Okay.
set active. Yeah, see like that? And then see it expects a parentheses, and it wants a boolean, true or false. So we do true, set active true, right? For my ragdoll.
Yeah.
If you just ran it like this, it will still have the original objects there, and then
Yeah.
ragdoll will just pop in. So we need to disable ourselves now.
Mhm.
So then all you do is you type lowercase game object, which refers to the game object we're currently attached to. So game object,
Not this one.
no, so that's my
So whenever
ragdoll.
you
So whenever you
say
type just game object like that, that usually means
The
like
game object you're talking about.
that the script is
Okay.
attached to.
Okay.
So game object dot set active parentheses and then false. And then just type false, and that's it. And now if we go back here, and one other thing that we actually need to do is, since, well, here's the thing, right? So this is actually another interesting part, and it's part of our colliders and triggers. So what's the difference between a collider and a trigger? Now, collider is ideal if your object, you don't want things to go through it. Now, if we tried this right now,
Is it rigid body making that?
so it does, right? But say we're never actually going to move this. We just want this character to just do the action
Yeah.
as soon as something goes in it. The only way that this character would react to the collision is if he had a rigid body, too. So now if I did this, and you can just follow me because we're not yet. So see, he'll already just collapse right off the bat.
What if you put a rigid body?
Well, I think it's because there's an object inside him. I think that's colliding. I'm not exactly sure. Let me see. Weird. Oh yeah, because he's using gravity, and because he falls, the moment he falls on the floor, he just becomes a rigid body. See, so because on collision,
Yeah.
so if look, see, so you
And then it turns into ragdoll.
basically
Okay.
right now, maybe we don't want that. You know, maybe we want it just with the cube. So
Mhm.
that's where the other comes in. And then you could do, so you don't have to follow this, but you could just see, you could do if other object dot name, dot game object dot name is equal to, and then quotes like this, cube. So if other object dot game object dot name, and then equals equals. So you do equals equals whenever you're doing a comparative. You only do equal once if something is equal to something.
Yeah.
But equals equals is when you're doing an if. So if something is equal to something, you do the equal equal.
Yeah.
And then you do that, and then, yeah. So,
Okay. So
Now-
so only for cube.
yeah, so now if he falls, he will not, so he falls, he's still doing, he's kind of wobbling, because see now the cube will come
Wait, I have one of the.
rigid body.
Okay.
There it is. So just press play. Yeah, so now just take the cube and push it into it. There.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It works perfect because the animation was literally, it's the same exact pose. But it happens so instantaneously that you don't even see the switch. You get it?
Yeah.
Because it literally happens in one frame before the computer even draws it.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. Now, say we didn't want this guy to actually have a rigid body. Maybe he needs to float in the sky or whatever and not be influenced by anything. So if I get rid of the rigid body here, it won't work like we had earlier. But ideally, what we would want in another scenario, and you know what, actually for this one, let's just keep the rigid body on, and I'm actually going to do another example for trigger. But what I was getting at is that you can actually make this a trigger, not just a collider. And the way that you do that is you just select right here, it says is trigger, and then it would be a different function. It would be on trigger enter, not on collision enter. But we're going to do that next now.
Okay.
But this is just a little quick brief example of how to do it like this. Now, what I want you to do is let's create like a makeshift goal, like a goal post, right? Kind of like a soccer or something like that. So just do it with cubes. Just pull some cubes around and like stretch them, just to kind of make. Something like this. It's better.